Kelly, legend of the media and dear friend of this program. Megyn, lovely to see you again.
Hi, Paul.
Now, in the middle of the night in Australia, middle of the day your time, Joe Biden stumbles up to the microphone. In between the carry on and the stumbling and the bumbling and all the rest of it, he decided to do what was rather obvious before the war started, which was to deny Russia American oil money. What do you think of the decision?
I think it's a teaspoon in the ocean, and it's symbolic at best. It's not going to do anything to really change what we're looking at right here. I think, Vladimir Putin is to blame for his behavior and for this war, but our leaders had a hand in getting us into this mess, and they don't know how to get us out. That seems clear, and as you learn more and listen more to the experts who have really been following, in particular, our energy situation, you can see where the blame squarely lies. I had Michael Schellenberger on my show today, who wrote the book Apocalypse Never, is a brilliant takedown of these green energy enthusiasts who are crazed. It's a religion for them, from Greta Thunberg on down. The land that it takes to build windmill facilities and solar panels and so on, and the slave labor that they use to build a lot of these solar panels, it does more harm than good. And then the renewables themselves don't really work. But what we see here is symbolic moves like, okay, the world is going to release 60 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, 30 million from the American supply and 30 million from everybody else's. Here in America, we go through 20 million barrels alone here in one day. So what? They're just trying to fool ma and pa sitting at home who don't have the time to research this stuff into making it look like they're doing something. We're still touting renewables. Jen Psaki, Joe Biden's press secretary, today, as they're looking at almost $7 a gallon gas in California and over $4 on a national average, is looking at the American people and saying the answer is renewables. And we're going to get tough on Putin. We're going to take away the 7% of oil sales that, we use from him. And none of it makes any sense, Paul. This is a problem we needed to solve before this happened. We can't solve it now that it's actually happening.
And also, as you say, because there is this religious fervour for people to want to change the world to make them feel more comfortable, you see today from the president, you see it from that idiot Jen Psaki, you see it from the left here in Australia. Oh, the answer is to change everyone over to an electric car tomorrow. So despite the fact that the infrastructure wouldn't be able to support it, in this country It cost $1 trillion to do it. So let's imagine they all got their wish tomorrow. Well, the infrastructure wouldn't work. But then secondly, what a childish way of imagining how to solve a problem is just make the problem go away.
Yeah. Well, even Elon Musk was tweeting out saying we're going to have to increase our oil and gas production like immediately. Let's say tomorrow we were able to flip a switch and everybody could drive an electric car. Where are we going to plug them in? Do we have enough plugs for that across the United States, across Australia? And by the way, what will that do to the environment? That amount of battery power, that amount of electricity it takes to plug in the stations and so on. Nobody thinks about that stuff, right? Right now, we are dependent on fossil fuels. That's the reality. And it's going to take fossil fuels to get us through this crisis and over to the other side. And then we're going to have to get really serious about internally looking at our energy supply. You guys, us, Germany. Germany has single-handedly led Europe to energy dependence, despite all of its investments in renewables and the fact that it's now taking its oil and gas from Russia. Their energy bills are still through the roof. It's not working. And France, which has gone more nuclear, it's working out much better there. So you tell me who's got the better policy. I think Biden has had it wrong from the beginning on energy. He was more worried about the wrath of Greta Thunberg than Vladimir Putin.
Absolutely. Great. Well played, everyone. I hope you all feel good. Yeah. All good.
Yeah.
All
Do we
good
feel
at your
good about
next
ourselves?
Conferences. Nice and comfortable, in your part of the world. But of course, the further you go from the richer parts of the city, who cares, right? Now, before we go, you, of course, know the ups and downs of American cable TV, and MSNBC is crazy leftyville, and there is even a person on MSNBC that I would imagine some of the lefties go, really? Her name is Joy Reid. We showed this clip last night, but I want to get your reaction to it. Her suggestion, the only reason we care about Ukraine is because they are white.
The coverage of Ukraine has revealed a pretty radical disparity in how human Ukrainians look and feel to Western media compared to their browner and blacker counterparts. Okay, let's face it. The world is paying attention because this is happening in Europe. If this was happening anywhere else, would we see the same outpouring of support and compassion? Well, we don't need to ask ourselves if the international response would be the same if Russia unleashed their horror on a country that wasn't white and largely Christian.
All she likes to do is go out there and stir up racial hatred. And the fact that NBC and MSNBC will allow this is an absolute disgrace. By the way, her point, of course, is stupid and unsupported. I was on Fox News when the Syrian crisis happened and the refugee crisis happened there. We led with that story all the way over here in America, night after night after night. When I got my sit downs with President Putin, I asked him, I got right up in his grill about Syria and what was happening there and what had been done to children and chemical weapons. Go ahead and play the tape. She apparently is too dumb to pay attention to the fact that we did cover a lot of things that happened in countries with people who happen to have darker skin. She just was too apparently moronic to pay attention or didn't understand what she was seeing when it happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, look, I know you've got to go, but I've got to ask quickly because you mentioned it. The experience of interviewing Vladimir Putin, he looks different than when you sat down and talked to him. Now, obviously, no, we can't play pop psychologist here, but do you agree that he at the very least looks a whole lot different than when you looked into his eyes?
He looks a little heavier. He looks thicker to me, and he's certainly aged a lot in the past couple of years. I mean, I interviewed him 3 times in and around 2018. So I don't know, but I get nervous about, going too far down the he's crazy now train, because who knows? And Vladimir Putin, if he's one thing, he's very smart, very strategic. He thinks out his plans very well, and he doesn't back down easily. That's not to say this is being well executed. It's clearly not. But it's hard for me to buy that he's completely lost it in such a short amount of time, because that he's extremely cunning, extremely manipulative, extremely well-informed, well-read, and ready for anything as recently as 2018. And I spent a lot of hours with him. I interviewed him in the Kremlin in Moscow, where they keep their nuke site, in Kaliningrad, and also in St. Petersburg, his hometown, at his economic conference. And I didn't see anything close to crazy. I saw somebody who would absolutely kill for a strategic goal and would do so without feeling one bit of sorrow. But I didn't see crazy or signs of lunacy. So, I think this is more of the Vladimir Putin we knew before. We just didn't totally estimate, we didn't correctly estimate the extent of his desires in this region of the country and just how ruthless he was prepared to be to get him.
Is he creepy, or sort of, I'm imagining like a wolf that sort of smiles and shows its teeth? What's he like?
Paul, so interesting. He is whatever he thinks you want him to be. So he is a former KGB agent, and he studied, how to manipulate people, how to affect people. And so he knew that I was a mother of 3 young children. And one of the first things he mentioned to me was his relationship with his mother and how much he loved his mother and what it was like when he was a little boy. And clearly he's trying to butter me up, right? He's trying to win favor, and very smiley and very polite and a total gentleman, right? When I'm talking to him behind the scenes. And then Prime Minister Modi of India came, and the 3 of us sat down and had tea and sort of a little, I don't know what you'd call it. They told me it was going to be a state dinner, so I wore a saucy dress, Paul. It was not a state dinner. Anywho, it was just the 3 of us. This is awkward.
You got a hot dog, maybe.
So anyway, in front of Modi, he was a little bit more of like the paternalistic, like a little chauvinistic man, like, oh, look at you. We won't even be able to concentrate on the questions tomorrow. He wasn't trying to compliment me. He was trying to put me down. He was trying to put me in my place. Again, another manipulation. And then when I had him on stage and I was really getting in his grill, in particular about Syria, Joy, hi, run the tape. He was angry and he was like in my face. So he's whatever he wants to be and whatever he thinks you need him to be in the moment.